Good afternoon. I'm Dan Barson, your host for our 7th AutoTalk session. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Let me review just a few administrative issues before we get started. If you have any questions during today's presentation, please feel free to enter them in the bottom right side of your screen. There's a place there, Q&A. Feel free to type in a question. Bob will be addressing those questions after today's presentation. We'll be sending everybody on the call today, as well as everybody that registered, a copy of today's presentation, and you should receive that by the end of this week. Please stay on the line after today's presentation. We're going to have a quick announcement on our upcoming programming for November, December, and January. We will be holding a drawing after today's program. If you receive an email that you're a winner, we're going to have a drawing for some Lands' End business sportswear, and we will have 2 winners on that program. And finally, I'd like to take a minute here and introduce Bob Grill. Bob has over 30 years experience in the automobile industry, specifically dealers, and has had some really strategic positions at one of the big public groups that I know all of you would recognize the name. I want you to get a notepad out and take some notes, because Bob is going to challenge some traditional thinking today. And this morning's session was terrific, really challenged all of us to kind of open up our minds and take a new look at this side of the business. So with that, I'm going to introduce Bob. Bob, take her away.
Thank you very much, and I want to let everyone know we appreciate you being on today, and that it's a real honor to be invited to speak with the AutoTalk system, and we're really looking forward to this. This has been near and dear to our hearts, and we're happy to provide you with some valuable information today. So let's get right into it with today's agenda. First thing we're going to do is look at maximizing the inventory opportunities. You know, with today's inventory crunch, it becomes more and more difficult and more critical to find those pieces we need to survive, and we certainly want to share with you some best practices how to make that happen. Then we're going to go into the truth about the online customer. Actually, I think you might be a little surprised with what we cover and some things you'll take with you today. And then we'll finish it up with increase in sales opportunities, because at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to. Are we able to sell a few more cars? Are we able to find that 1 or 2 more car deals along the way? And the funny part about it is, it really only takes a few little steps to make a big impact on your sales. So we'll certainly cover that today. All right, so if we move forward, let's jump right into it. Going to start it out with a very important question for you. This is the question we want you to think about throughout this presentation, and that is, does your dealership stock vehicles with accidents? And if not, why not? In other words, do you have a blanket policy at your dealership where you just simply don't stock accident vehicles? Your customers don't seem to like them, your salesmen aren't real comfortable with them. Well, it's a bigger question than you might think, and it impacts your business more than you might realize. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. Did you know that 20% of the vehicles on the road today have some sort of reported accident? Why does it matter to you? Well, here's why. Because, again, if you're having a blanket policy where you don't stock them, that's automatically shutting off 20% of all the available inventory that's out there. So not only are you trying to survive in a time when inventory is restrained, but you just automatically eliminated 20% of it. Not only that, but you have to realize that also means that you are hampering the effectiveness of your car deals and your negotiations 1 out of every 5 trades. Now, we all know the truth, and that is that 50% of all new car deals have a trade involved in them, and 30% of all used car deals have a trade in them. So just give that some thought. 1 out of every 5 opportunities, you're literally hampering to it, right? Because if you think about it, if you're going to plan on not stocking these vehicles just because they have an indicator on them, you're not only going to hit them soft, you're going to hit them safe, because you're going to try and prepare for a wholesale opportunity. As a matter of fact, one of the cardinal sins done today is that dealers are using those vehicles to actually make a little wholesale profit, which means you're hitting them way too soft, right? So let's just take an advantage and make sure that we're looking at every retail opportunity, and make sure we're not missing anything at the deal table. All right? So let's look at our supply line. If you take a look at that supply line, here's an important question for you. Why fight over the same 80%? What are we talking about here? Well, in today's world and the way car business is today, we rely heavily on the auction space and rental fleets and whatnot to come up with some supply for inventory or to come up with some vehicles to make sure our lots are full. Well, if we're at a local auction because we're trying to pick up some pieces, who else is there? Every other dealer in my marketplace is there, and another large number of dealers are on the web. Well, if we're all fighting over the same 80, because why would we look at accident vehicles when we have a supply of vehicles without accidents? Well, here's why. Everyone knows that dealers tell us, the auctions tell us, our partners all tell us that two vehicles side by side, one with a no accident and one with an accident, that accident vehicle tends to bring about 1,000 to 1,500 less in the wholesale lane with a median vehicle. Now, if we talk about a high-line vehicle, it could be as high as $2,000, $2,500. Just think about that for a second, because that $1,000 to $1,500 less will really equate to $20 to $30 a month in a car payment. There's not a dealer on this call today that hasn't lost a deal in the last few days to $20 or $30 a month. So if you did it strategically, if you'd put together an offensive plan and you looked at all the available inventory at that space, you could pick out the one or two or three pieces that would make a big difference, because it would give you two play possibilities. One, it could allow you to market that vehicle in 7 days when everyone brings these cars back to their shops and gets them through the shops and gets them up front ready for sale. All of a sudden, you are holding a vehicle that would legitimately give you that $1,000 to $1,500 price point advantage in the marketplace. But better than that, you would allow your salespeople to have another tool when they can't close that car deal for that $20 or $30 a month. You at least give your salespeople the opportunity to show the consumer this vehicle and let the consumer decide if they would rather have a vehicle with a little bit of history that can hit that monthly payment, or indeed if they would rather pay a little bit more and have the one that they feel is a little more perfect. Always, always important. Look for the accident life cycle. Don't just look for some vehicles that might have an incident. Make sure you can explain it. Make sure you understand the severity, and make sure you can explain if it's been repaired or not. We'll go into that in just a minute. So again, why fight over the 80%? Here's the bottom line. There are no bad cars for sale. You just may not have the right customer for that vehicle, right? Every vehicle for sale can be good, provided that that customer is fully aware of the circumstances, is fully aware of the history of that vehicle. Everything from just a minor door ding all the way up to a salvage title has the right customer. All that's ever being asked is that you make sure that your customers are well aware of the history of the vehicle. Survey after survey, certainly the ones we do, certainly the ones that third parties do, the customer does not anticipate a used car being perfect. Now, I know we've just done a good job, and we always sell it that way, especially with our CPO programs, but the consumer themselves does not anticipate that perfect used car. So again, just make sure they're well aware of the situation, and if you do that, you'd be amazed what kind of cars you could be selling. All right? Now, here's an interesting thought for you. Here's something you need to look at. You definitely need to know before you buy. Here's what we know for sure. We know that customers today have more tools at their disposal than ever before. We know that that consumer does an enormous amount of research. So here's the big question. Why wouldn't we? Why would we want to not have the full advantage of knowing all the evidence that's out there, all the information that's out there, knowing that our customer's gonna, right? So what should we look at? Well, first and foremost, we need to think retail. You need to think retail first. Stop looking at the wholesale books, the blacks, the blues, the NADA, whatever it is you're using. You're setting yourself up at a wholesale figure when, in fact, the better practice would be to look at the retail side of the equation first and then work yourself backwards. So you want to look at your listing sites, right? You want to look at your AutoTraders, your cars, your Carfax online sites. You want to get a feel for what are these vehicles retailing for in my marketplace. Then, by knowing the history, you can assess the recon. How much is it going to take for me to make this vehicle retail ready? And you can work backwards. If I feel the retail market is this, it's going to cost me this much to get ready, and I need to make this much profit, you really limit your surprises just by that one move. looking at retail first versus at wholesale. Same thing when you're trading in and you're doing an appraisal at your dealership. Always look for ways to turn that unit into a retail possibility, all right? Now, what are consumers doing online? I know some of this might sound repetitive. We're going to put a little bit of different twist on it for you though, right? It's unarguable that 9 out of 10 consumers go online before they hit their dealer. No one on this call will argue that point. Now, the adjustment has been in the amount of time spent. For years and years and years, we were taught that it was 9 to 11 hours. Well, in recent times, as a matter of fact, at Digital Dealer, our friends at AutoTrader and some other people doing the research have found that the time has been actually increased. Everyone was saying it's going to go down. It's actually gone up to 11 to 13 and a half hours, but they're doing more research online and less time at the dealership, which makes what we do at that dealership even more critical, and we'll get into that in just a minute. The part you may not know is that over a third of those consumers are more than willing to shop outside of their designated market. You know, we used to have that little 50-mile circle or whatever it might be, which we considered our PMA or our prime market area. Consumers will absolutely go further and further out to find the right vehicle, provided that they are comfortable with that vehicle. So it becomes more and more critical that online you're filling in those blanks and you're making them comfortable. We'll go there in just a second. So what are they finding out online? Absolutely everything, right? If we look online as to what it does, we can break it down a little bit for you. We got the information. First and foremost, they're always looking at accidents, right? Why? Because that's scary to them. They're always going to envision the worst. It's up to us to take care of that. Second might surprise you, because second is that service. Has the oil been changed regularly? Has they been maintaining the car? Has this car been well taken care of? Third, of course, would be the owners. Not only how many, is it a one owner or a multiple owner? That's an easy value build. But what kind of owner? Was it a person that owned this car? Was it a rental car? Was it a commercial vehicle? What was it? And where's it from? No offense to our friends up north, but a car in Michigan or a car in Buffalo or a car in Boston has a little tougher life than a car in Florida or a car in Arizona. So again, it's the amount of owners, the type of owners, and where were they owned at. And bottom on this list, bottom on every list, is that old value equation, right? What's the cost of the vehicle? Well, the reason it's always last on the list, everybody in this call understands, it's the first three that build that value, which will equate for the amount you're asking for the vehicle. All right? Now, I know this following slide, I know this actually says Carfax on it, but we wanted to share this with you. This is some data research. It's been verified several times. As a matter of fact, the Chicago dealers did their own version of this exact same study. And what it equates to is that history helps. If you list your vehicle online with some history behind it, you get 5 times the likelihood of that consumer submitting a lead. So again, we won't wear that out. Just wanted to share a little insight for you. Without question, history helps you attract those leads. All right? Now, speaking of online, let's take a look at something that you'll find pretty interesting, right? If you price a vehicle online too high above market, will it cost you traffic? I know that's an easy answer, so let's make it a little more difficult. What about if you priced it too low? There's an instant question. We know for sure that when a consumer sees a vehicle, let's say it's at $1,500, $2,000 below market value, they automatically associate what? That's right. Something must be bad with it. There must be something terribly wrong with it. So be careful with that one. When you're going to use those cars and you're going to use these vehicles at a competitive market price advantage, make sure you do the detail work. Make sure you can explain why it's priced the way it's priced. But more importantly on this, we want you to understand that it actually can add value to your vehicle. Why? Because an accident can actually be the bridge that takes a vehicle from current market pricing to a more affordable price if that consumer is comfortable with the accident. Let me repeat that one because that's the biggest one of the day. An accident can actually create that bridge that takes a vehicle from current market pricing to a more affordable price bracket if that consumer is comfortable with the accident. All right? Remember, that's why we're here. We're trying to improve our business. So what do we mean by that? You have to fill in the blanks. You mention a vehicle's in an accident and you don't fill in the blanks and you don't give them detail, here's what they see. Or maybe they even see this one. How about that one? When ultimately it might have only been this. It might have been a cracked taillight. It might have been a scratch on the side of the car. There's no way for that consumer to know that unless you do a good job of filling in the explanation. Don't be afraid of it. The consumer's not. They're just afraid of the unknown. So naturally, anything they don't know, they're going to make worse than it probably actually is. Most important of all, you have to address the accident life cycle. What are we talking about here? Well, it's one thing to know whether the vehicle's been in an accident, right? It's another thing to know when it was in the accident, and for example, if it's the same owner. If it's the same owner and they've kept the vehicle for 4 more additional years, that'll help you explain the accident. Because part 2 of the life cycle is how severe was it? It's one thing to know a vehicle was in an accident. It's another to know how severe. Was it just a minor door ding? Was it body damage? Was there structural damage or frame damage or an airbag deployed? Again, we're not saying that just because a vehicle might have all of those that it's not a good retail piece. You just need to be able to make sure that your customer is fully aware of the circumstances and use it as an offensive play. But first and last are just as important. And lastly, you need to make sure that you can complete the cycle, and was it fully repaired? Was it done at a certified body shop? Was it done at your body shop? Did you use certified parts, or was it used parts? Any kind of information that you can place into that vehicle will automatically build the value, okay? So again, how can you do it? Well, I'll share with you a couple of ways you can do it. One, you could use a history report, right? Any history report. Just take your time, look at that report. Number 2 might be you could interview the person trading in the vehicle. You could interview the people that you bought the vehicle from, all right? So share the gathered information with the buyer and show any supporting documents you may have. But very critical to the sauce today is make sure you address the whole accident life cycle, all right? So very good. Now, we all know this to be true, right? That customer is educated. Some say overeducated. Some say they have too much information, right? Well, here's the truth. Why then, if 90% of them have as much education as possible and are showing up at our dealerships, why are we only closing 20 to 30% of them, right? That old 25 to 30% fresh walk-in close. Why? Well, it's because we need to do number 1 and make sure our teams are fully educated. You can't have a customer walking into your showroom today with more education than your staff does. Make sure you keep them up to speed, right? It's called liquidity. Let me share with you what we're talking about. Here's the question. Does your dealership showroom feel like your internet showroom? Okay, let me repeat that one. Does your dealership showroom feel like your internet showroom? You see, online, a consumer takes their time or goes as fast as they'd like. Online, a consumer can go from one page to another. They can look at one car, then another car, come back to that car. They can take a break, go get a beer, and come back and continue going. But what happens when they hit the bricks? What happens when they go from click to brick? What happens when they show up at our dealership? Well, I'll share with you what happens. They start having to be with a salesperson. They start having to sit down and go through steps 2 and 3 before we allow them to look at a car. We have to reconsider this in today's world, right? We should be able to pick up where they left off, all right? We should be able to not make them adjust to our sales process. Keep them where they're happy. Keep them where they are. We gain rapport by giving them merit for the research. Now, listen, I know you've heard this a lot, but there's a reason you're hearing it a lot. We have to be able to, as an industry, transition to make it a better experience for our shoppers so that it becomes a better experience for our buyers, all right? 3 simple steps. Pick up where they left off. Don't make them adjust to our process, and give them merit for the research they've done. We all know how to do that. All right, let's sum it up. Let's work on our takeaways. So take some notes here. Here we go. Number 1, always explore the retail opportunities by not fearing the vehicle's history. Remember, always think and look retail first. Look for opportunities, look for ways to turn our trade-ins, to turn vehicles at auction into retail pieces. Number 2, have a plan and make sure your team is educated on the plan. Listen, it's one thing to be an educated buyer yourself, right? You're out there grabbing inventory, you're making sure you're doing your research. All that's terrific. But if the people that are going to represent your cars to the consumers aren't as educated as you are, that's not good. And if your consumer's more educated than your salespeople, that's even worse. So give that some thought, all right? Number 3, show history up front, and again, do all you can do to complete the accident life cycle. okay? Again, put them at ease, show them that history up front, but do all that you can do to complete the accident life cycle. And number 4, pick up where they left off, okay? Pick up where that consumer left off online. Build rapport through your sales process. 90% of them are showing up ready to go. Let's find an extra 5 or 10% on our closing ratios, right? We're not going to get them all, but we can certainly pick up a few pieces. So I hope you wrote those down. And with that, I would like to open it up for any questions you may have, okay? Taking a look at it, here's one. How many accident vehicles should I stock? Should I have a parking lot full of them? Well, no one's telling you to have a parking lot full of these cars. But what we are telling you is if that's your business model, it certainly would work for you. We know several dealers that use that as a business model. But you should try and have 1 or 2 in each price point category, right? Or maybe 1 or 2 in a particular hot model lineup you have. So again, am I telling you to change everything you're doing? Absolutely not. But certainly have enough of them to where you can supplement what you're doing, have a little bit of a marketing advantage, and by all means have a tool for your salespeople to have a switch vehicle. Here's one. Would you please go over the accident life cycle again? Absolutely, because that's a big thing today. And that is, it's not enough just to know if a vehicle's been in an accident, right? You also got to let them know how severe that accident was. Was it nothing at all? Was it a scrape or a scratch? Or was it a big deal? Was it a little more than that? Whatever it might be, just make sure that your customer is fully aware and educated on it. And last, let's make sure we can explain to them how we've gone about and made sure that vehicle is repaired. Was it repaired at a certified shop? Did they use certified parts? Okay? So again, if you complete that accident life cycle, it'll absolutely help you put your customers at ease and build value in your products. I think that's the 2 we got up front. So back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Bob. Hey, Bob, could we, you and I and the team on this morning's call talked a little bit about the fact that most dealers are already dealing in perhaps accident vehicles through their certified program.
Absolutely. You know what?
Could you touch on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I would. You bring up a valid point. You got to look at it this way, guys. If the manufacturers are comfortable enough that they allow you to certify a vehicle with as many as 3 repaired panels or certain percentage of a value of a dollar amount, if your manufacturer's not afraid to certify that vehicle, why would you be? Just think about that for a second. If the manufacturers are comfortable enough that with our CPO programs, most allow us to have 2, 3 panels to have work done to them, allowed repaints, around a certain amount of dollar value, if they're that comfortable, by all means, we should be that comfortable. So good point, Dan.
Well, listen, Bob, we really want to thank you for your time today. This was outstanding information. Really enjoyed this end of the business, and it's certainly gives everybody on the call another opportunity to look at another revenue source.
Yeah, and by the way, we got got the email up there. I just want to make sure everyone was comfortable. If they had a couple of questions that they weren't able to put on here, if they had anything they wanted to take offline, by all means, you guys could email me. You see my email up there. It's robertgrill@carfax.com. Be happy to take it offline. Be happy to help you.
Great. And listen, everybody on today's call will also receive a copy of this presentation that should come before the end of the week via email. Everybody that registered for today's presentation will receive that. So, use it, leverage it. It would probably be great in even a sales meeting at your dealership. I want to, again, thank you all for joining us. Let me review real quick some upcoming programming. In November, again, right on the heels here of Digital Dealer, that was, Bob, last week in Vegas, I believe, we saw each other. We're going to have a dealer track, talk about leveraging technology and how to leverage that technology to increase your sales and also your growth. In December, we're going to have our program that's going to be the 2015 year in review and what to expect for 2016. We're going to have a really dynamic panel of experts there, including Tom Contos, Chief Economist for ADESA, and we're also going to have 2 individuals from Wells Fargo wealth management, car analysts. Both of these guys are the #1 car analyst for Wells Fargo, and they'll be on the call as well. In January, we're going to have Mark O'Neill, the president of DealerTrack, that'll be joining us. And Mark, of course, as everybody on the call knows, DealerTrack was purchased by Cox. That did go through just a few weeks ago. It was okayed by the government. And Mark is going to share their vision of what this combined company is going to look like, what dealers can expect out of this organization, and their vision moving forward. So that should be a really interesting presentation from Mark. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in November, the 3rd Tuesday in November. And again, we'll be repeating it twice, one at 10 a.m., following with the afternoon session at 4 p.m. Again, Bob, thanks for an outstanding session today. And everybody, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in November. Have a great end of the month. Thank you.